Thanks for watching and liking the video. I put my key in the door at 10 p.m. on Wednesday, 3 days earlier than planned, and I heard my wife laughing in the living room. A man's voice answered her. I froze in the hallway, suitcase in hand, and I felt the floor drop out from under me. It was her idea. The week apart. Kate and I had been together 8 years, married for 6. The last half year had been quiet. Not bad, just quiet. We worked, ate dinner, watched shows. But something was slipping away. I couldn't name it. She didn't bring it up either. We both kept pretending everything was fine. 2 weeks ago, she said, we need a break. Not a divorce. Just a week apart. To remember who we are without each other. To miss each other again. I didn't argue. It sounded healthy. Mature. Like something couples who actually care about their marriage do. I remember nodding, saying, okay, maybe that's what we need. She smiled like it was a relief that I agreed. The next day, she sent me a list of places I could stay. Her tone was calm, like she'd thought it through. I didn't question it. I even joked that maybe we'd come out of this like newlyweds. She laughed softly and said, that's the point. And I believed her. I wanted to believe that space could fix us. That maybe we'd been too close for too long. Work, bills, stress, it all piles up until love feels like background noise. Maybe we both needed to reset. I thought if we did this right, we'd come back stronger. The night before I left, we had dinner together. Chicken and rice. Nothing special. She poured wine, asked if I packed enough clothes. I said yeah. She said, text me when you get there. It felt almost normal. Too normal. Later, lying next to her, I tried to remember the last time we'd really talked. Not about groceries or work, but about us. I couldn't. I told myself this break would change that. That after a week, we'd finally have something real to say. Before I left, she hugged me longer than usual. Said, don't overthink it, okay? This is good for us. I kissed her on the forehead and told her I trusted her. And I did. Completely. Driving away that Sunday morning, I felt light. Hopeful even. Like we were doing something brave. Something honest. I didn't know then that I was giving her exactly what she wanted. Time without me. I drove to Portland that Sunday. Stayed with my brother, Mike. Kate stayed home. We agreed. No calls, no texts, no social media. Total silence until Sunday night. She said it would help us clear our heads. I said fine. I thought discipline would make it work. The first 2 days felt strange. Not bad, just off. Like walking through your own life, but without sound. I woke up early, went to the gym with Mike. We hadn't done that in years. He joked that I looked like I'd been trapped in a cubicle too long. He wasn't wrong. We grabbed burgers, met some of his friends. They asked about Kate, if we were still that perfect couple from our wedding photos. I said, we're figuring things out. They nodded like they understood. Everyone's figuring something out. By Tuesday night, I started to relax. I laughed again, watched a game with Mike, had a few beers. He asked what this week apart was supposed to do. I told him what Kate said, to reconnect with ourselves. He said, that's actually smart. Most people just ignore the problem until it blows up. I agreed. At that moment, I really thought we were doing the right thing. But by Wednesday, the silence started to get heavy. I'd open my phone without thinking, just to check if she texted. Nothing. I scrolled through old photos. Us at the coast, her birthday last year, that stupid selfie we took after painting the living room. She looked happy in all of them. I wondered if she still was. I tried to distract myself. Went for a run. Cooked dinner with Mike. But every quiet moment pulled me back to her. The house. Her voice. The way she always left a light on in the hallway because she hated the dark. Little things you don't notice until they're gone. That night, Mike fell asleep on the couch. I sat there, beer half finished, staring at my phone. I wanted to text her, just one message, good night. But I didn't. We had rules. And I didn't want to be the one to break them. Still, something in me started to ache. Not panic, not fear. Just that deep pull when you realize you miss someone more than you expected. I thought about driving back, surprising her, making her laugh again. Telling her I didn't want space, I wanted her. The idea stuck. By the next morning, I'd made up my mind. I packed my bag, told Mike I was heading out. He asked if the week was over already. I said, not yet, but I want to end it on my terms. He smiled. Go get your girl. I left Portland that afternoon. 3 days early. Excited. Nervous. Hopeful. I thought I was coming home to save my marriage. I didn't know I was walking straight into the truth. I pulled into our driveway just after 10 on Wednesday night. The porch light was on. Her car was there. Seeing it made me smile. She was home. I sat in the car for a minute, trying to picture her face when she saw me. Surprised. Happy. Maybe even relieved. I imagined walking in, setting my bag down, telling her, "You were right. We don't need a break. We just need each other." That was the plan. That's what I thought this was, a reunion. I grabbed my suitcase and unlocked the front door quietly. Didn't want to ruin the surprise. The house smelled like her candles, lavender and vanilla. It felt warm, alive. For the first time in weeks, it felt like home again. Then I heard it. Her laugh. Soft. Real. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard in months. It came from the living room. And then a man's voice answered her. Calm. Casual. Like he belonged there. I stopped in the hallway, just past the kitchen. Heart pounding. I thought maybe I misheard. Maybe it was the TV. But then I heard her say, "You're ridiculous," followed by another burst of laughter. No TV show sounds like that. The door to the living room was half open. I took a slow step forward, peered through the gap. Kate was on the couch, barefoot, her hair pulled up, wearing one of my hoodies. There was a bottle of wine on the coffee table, 2 glasses, and next to her, a man. Tall, dark hair, familiar face. It took a second to place him. I'd seen him before, in her photos from work. One of her co-workers. There he was, sitting inches from my wife, laughing with her, like they'd done this 100 times before. She leaned toward him, hand brushing his arm. He didn't move away. Neither did she. The wine bottle was almost empty. Another sat on the table, unopened. I remember staring at it, focusing on that stupid detail because I couldn't look at them. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. They weren't kissing. They weren't doing anything obvious. But I knew. It was the way she looked at him. Relaxed. Comfortable. The way she used to look at me. I felt heat rise in my chest, my palms sweating. Every part of me wanted to walk in, flip on the light, say something, ask what the hell was going on. But I didn't move. I just stood there, stuck between disbelief and dread. Her laugh echoed again. He said something I couldn't hear. She leaned in closer. And in that moment, I knew. That week apart wasn't about space. It was about making room for him. I could have walked in. I could have flipped on the light and asked, "What's going on here?" But I didn't. I just stood there in the dark hallway, frozen. My hand was still on the doorknob. My bag on the floor. Every second felt longer than the last. She leaned her head against his shoulder. He put his arm around her waist. They looked at the TV, but they weren't watching it. They were just sitting there, close, quiet, breathing the same air. That was the part that hit hardest. How easy it looked. No guilt. No hesitation. Like this wasn't new. Like I was the intruder now. My throat tightened. I wanted to make a sound, to break whatever this was, to remind her I existed. But I didn't trust myself to speak. If I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure what would come out. So I turned around. Slowly, quietly, walked back down the hallway. Each step felt like it echoed. I didn't want them to hear me. Didn't want to give them that moment of panic. Didn't want her to know I saw. When I reached the door, my hands were shaking so bad I dropped the keys. I caught them before they hit the floor. Opened the door. Stepped outside. The air was cold. Too clean. Too sharp. I shut the door behind me and stood there for a second, trying to breathe. The house that used to feel like mine, it didn't anymore. It felt like I was trespassing. I got in the car, started the engine. Headlights washed over the driveway, over her car. For a second, I thought about turning it off and going back inside, asking her to explain. But I knew how that would go. Tears. Denial. Maybe even anger at me for coming home early. So I drove. Not to Portland. Not anywhere specific. Just drove. Past the gas stations, empty parking lots, quiet neighborhoods. Didn't look at my phone. Didn't listen to music. Just white lines on the road and my own thoughts chasing me. It didn't feel real. 8 years together, and I was out there alone, driving nowhere, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. I kept telling myself, maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe they were just talking. Maybe. But deep down I knew. You can't fake the kind of comfort I saw in that room. That wasn't new. That wasn't accidental. Around midnight, I pulled into a rest stop. Sat there with the engine running. Hands on the wheel. No tears. No yelling. Just silence. All I could think was, that week apart wasn't about finding ourselves. It was about giving her space. Space where I didn't exist. Where he did. I ended up in a parking lot outside a 24-hour convenience store. 2 hours from home. The lights were harsh, buzzing, the kind that make everything look worse than it is. I turned off the engine and just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, heartbeat still pounding in my ears. I wanted to call her, to ask who he was, why he was there, what the hell that laugh meant. But I didn't, because I already knew. Instead, I opened my phone. I hadn't checked her social media in months. Didn't want to be that guy, the one scrolling for clues. But I did it anyway. Instagram first. Her last few posts were safe. Coffee at her desk. Dinner with friends. And then one photo from 2 weeks ago, a company event. She was in a black dress, smiling. And right behind her, hand resting on her lower back, was the same man. The one from my living room. His smile was casual. Hers different. Like she'd already chosen something. I stared at the screen until it dimmed out. Then I called the only person I could at that hour, my friend Aaron. He picked up, voice half asleep. "What's going on?" he asked. I said, "I just saw my wife with another man. In my house." There was silence. Then he said, "You sure?" I wanted to say no. I wanted him to tell me I was overreacting, that I'd misunderstood. But the words came out quiet and flat. I'm not sure what I saw, but I know she didn't want me to see it. He didn't try to fix it, didn't give advice. He just said, "Come over here. Don't do anything stupid." So I drove. His house was dark when I pulled up. He came to the door in sweatpants. No questions, just let me in. I dropped my bag on the floor and sat down on his couch. He handed me a blanket like I was some lost kid. Neither of us said much. I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling, replaying it all. Her laugh, his face, that half-empty bottle of wine. Trying to find a version of the night that didn't end the way it did. At one point, Aaron said, "You can't unsee it, man." He was right. It didn't matter what excuses she'd give. That image was burned in. By morning, I still hadn't closed my eyes. The sun came through the blinds, thin and pale. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just empty. And the question that wouldn't leave my head was simple. How long had this been going on? And what else had I missed? I drove home early the next morning. Didn't call. Didn't text. Just drove. When I pulled into the driveway, her car was still there. The same one I'd stared at the night before, from the same spot. For a second, it felt like nothing had happened. Like if I walked in, she'd smile, kiss me, ask how my trip went. But my stomach already knew better. She was in the kitchen when I walked in. Barefoot, hair messy, wearing one of my old t-shirts. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh, you're home early," she said, voice tight. "I thought you weren't coming back until Sunday." I kept my face calm. "Yeah, changed my mind." She smiled, small and polite. "Well, I'm glad you're here." I nodded. "Me too." For a minute, it almost looked normal. The coffee machine hummed. The morning light came through the blinds. If someone walked in right then, they'd think we were fine. But she couldn't look at me for long. I leaned against the counter. "How was your week?" She hesitated just long enough to notice. "Good," she said. Quiet. I did a lot of thinking. I nodded again. "That's good." Then I asked, "Were you alone?" She froze for half a second. It was small, a flicker, a breath, but I saw it. "Yeah, of course," she said. "Why?" I looked her straight in the eye. "No reason. Just curious." She exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath. Then smiled, softer this time. "You okay?" "I'm fine." We both knew that was a lie. She turned away, pretending to tidy up the counter. And I just stood there, watching her move around the kitchen like nothing had changed. But it had. Every word, every glance felt like acting. I remembered her laugh from last night. That light, effortless sound I hadn't heard in months. The one she didn't make for me anymore. And the silence between us now, it was the opposite of that. Heavy, careful, final. I wanted to ask her straight out. Ask who he was. Ask if it started before this week or during it. But I didn't. Because deep down, I already knew the answers. She looked calm. Peaceful even. That was the worst part. She didn't look guilty. She looked free. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat down. She asked if I wanted breakfast. I said no. And in that moment, watching her move around like a stranger in my house, I realized something I hadn't been ready to face. She was already gone. She just hadn't said it out loud yet. The next 3 days felt like walking on glass. I didn't bring it up. Neither did she. We just lived in that quiet space between pretending and ending. She started texting more. Quick messages, typed fast, deleted fast. Every time I walked into the room, she'd flip her phone over. Said she was talking to coworkers, making plans, catching up. I didn't call her out on it. I just watched. She came home late twice that week. Said traffic was bad. Said she stayed after work. Her tone was casual, but her eyes were somewhere else. When she looked at me, it was like looking through glass. I was there, but not really. At night, she slept on her side, facing away from me. The distance between us felt like miles. I kept thinking about that night. Her laugh, his voice. It looped in my head until I stopped sleeping altogether. By the third day, I couldn't take the silence. So I started paying attention, not in a jealous way, just careful. The kind of attention you give when you already know the truth, but still want proof. I checked our Netflix account one evening. We always shared it, our profiles side by side. Hers with romantic comedies, mine with thrillers. I opened the viewing history. She'd watched an entire season of a show we'd planned to start together. Every night, around 10. The same time we used to sit on the couch and press play. Same rhythm. Same habit. Just without me. I stared at the timestamps, one after another, each one a quiet goodbye. She didn't even wait. Didn't pause for the week to end. That's when it hit me. She wasn't hiding it because she was ashamed. She was hiding it because she was done. And I was just catching up. I wanted to confront her. Ask if she watched it alone. Ask if he was there. But I didn't. Because I didn't want to see the lie on her face again. Instead, I stayed quiet. Made coffee in the mornings. Went to work. Came home. I watched her move through the house, like someone counting the days. Polite. Detached. Careful. She wasn't cruel. That almost made it worse. She was kind in that way people are when they've already made peace with leaving. One night, she sat next to me on the couch. Close, but not touching. Asked how my week was. I said fine. She smiled, tired, distant. That's good. And I realized then, I didn't have to ask what was happening. I was already living in the answer. Saturday came. She said she was going to her friend Jenna's place for the night. Her tone was casual, too casual. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving. It felt rehearsed. As soon as the door closed, the house went silent. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the spot where she'd been. Then I walked to her desk. Her laptop was open. No password. She never used one. Said she trusted me. I hesitated. My hands were cold, heart pounding. I didn't want to look, but I did. Her email was open. At the top, a new message. Subject line, about this week. It was from him, the man from our living room. I clicked. The message was short. I know this is hard, but these days with you were the best I've had in years. I don't want them to end. Tell him, please. That was it. No signature. No goodbye. Just a plea. I leaned back in the chair. For a second, everything blurred. The words, the screen, even my own reflection in the monitor. It wasn't shock this time. It was confirmation. Proof of what I already knew. I closed the laptop. Sat there in the quiet. My hands were still shaking, but not from fear anymore. From anger. Not the kind that makes you yell or break things. The quiet kind. The kind that burns steady. I looked around the room. Our photos. The framed wedding picture on the wall. The throw blanket she loved. All these things built on something that wasn't real anymore. It felt like sitting inside a memory that hadn't caught up with the truth yet. I wanted to smash that laptop against the wall. Wanted to drive to wherever she was and ask how long she'd been planning this. But I didn't move. I just sat there. Because deep down, I realized I already knew the answer. Some part of me had known since that Wednesday night. Maybe even before that. You can feel when someone's gone. You just pretend you can't. I thought about how calm she'd been all week. How easily she smiled. How she never once asked how my break was. She'd already decided what came next. And now, so had I. I stayed there until it got dark. The glow from the screen faded to black. And I finally understood what that week apart had really been for. She hadn't wanted space to find herself. She wanted space to see if she could live without me. And she could. When she came back Sunday morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table. She looked surprised to see me awake. Hey, she said softly, setting down her purse. You're up early. I nodded. We need to talk. Her smile faded. She froze for half a second, then tried to play it off. Okay, what's going on? I reached into the drawer beside me, and pulled out the paper I'd printed last night, the email. I slid it across the table. She looked down at it, didn't touch it, didn't blink. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't want you to find out like this." The room felt too quiet. Even the hum of the fridge sounded distant. I asked how long. She hesitated. 3 months. But it wasn't serious. Not until this week. 3 months. The number echoed in my head like it belonged to someone else's life. I didn't say anything. Just stood there. She kept talking, words spilling out. Excuses, explanations, things meant to soften it. I didn't plan this. I didn't know how to stop it. I finally said, "You could have told me." She nodded, tears already falling. "I know. I just didn't want to hurt you." I almost laughed. The absurdity of that sentence. Hurt me? That was already done. I grabbed my jacket from the chair. She looked up, panic breaking through the calm. "Where are you going?" "To my brother's," I said. "This time for real." She stepped forward, eyes red, voice trembling. "Please, don't just walk out. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I stopped at the door, looked back at her one last time. "You knew," I said quietly. "You just didn't want to be the one who left first." Her mouth opened, but no words came. I turned the handle, stepped outside, and closed the door behind me. No shouting, no slammed doors, just silence. The air felt cold again, like that night I first drove away. Only this time, I didn't look back. A month later, I filed for divorce. She didn't fight it, didn't call, didn't ask for anything, just signed the papers and sent them back. Now I live alone. The apartment's small, quiet. Some nights, I still wake up thinking I hear her laugh. It takes a few seconds to remember it's not real anymore. It's strange, losing something that used to define you. The space it leaves behind isn't empty. It's honest. And maybe that's all I ever wanted. Thanks for listening to the story till the end. Write in the comments what you think about all this. Subscribe. More untold stories are on the way.